My name is Cole Gilbert. Please send me something. I play a lot of shows. I will tag you on Instagram. I don't give a fuck. I will sell out. Give me free stuff.
Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This is another episode of the Scoped Exposure Podcast. We welcome on just another amazing and good friend of Scoped Exposure and the show from the Bay Area. And dude, I'm really excited for this one today. Everyone, please welcome Cole from SCOWL, Blazer, and Force to the show. Dude, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to do it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for
Cole.
the introduction.
Of course, yeah. Cole and I have been, I think, loosely talking about him coming on the show for almost half a year. It feels like. I think.
Yeah, I think like March was probably when we first started talking about it.
I almost think the initial idea, I don't know if it was expressed, but I think the initial idea was even all the way back to Promcore 2021. So even like October, November of last year. But yeah,
We're coming up on like a year. That's nuts.
yeah. But I think as far as scheduling, it's been a couple months, and obviously with the Scope 5-year anniversary just passed, and you guys, SCOWL specifically being very involved in that was like a crucial thing of wanting to get a SCOWL podcast back in the mix of things. And then, and we've said this just before recording, as far as the time we're recording this just a few days ago, SCOWL did kind of a surprise set at a Sonic drive-through, so there's definitely some things that I want to talk to you about there. But
yeah,
I think all in all, like, Cole, you've been someone that I've I admired your projects and and SCOWL, just really crushing it. And you as a person, I've always felt good vibes when chatting with you online and in person. So it's honestly a pleasure to be welcoming you onto the show.
well, thank you. Damn, you're doing me. I'm blushing right now.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. No, I mean, likewise. I'm a fan of the show. I love watching all the episodes I can and listening as much as I can. I'm on the road quite a bit. But I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to just talk about shit,
Yeah.
and yeah, no, I mean, again, big fan of everything that you guys do. I'm happy that I've been on your channel multiple times at this point, and yeah, I'm happy to be here.
No, yeah, like it's always funny because it's like a big thing that I try to do, and I guess anything I am involved in hardcore is just try to be as positive and like gas people up that I truly believe in, and not just have it as like a performative thing. And yeah, like anytime it's been funny that sometimes at festivals where I can like look at the roster of the bands or even the people on stage, it's like I start to do the mental math of the percentage of how many band members I've had here on the show, and for whether it's Scoped or Hold Your Ground or Wild Rose, like that number just gets higher and higher as this show's existence goes on and on. But yeah, like, Malachi's been on the show, Kat's been on the show, and I'm really excited to, get the third SCOWL podcast in the bank. But before we get into all the music chats, Cole, as you know, we have to check some beverages before we get into that. So I saw as we were setting up, you have some off camera there. So how about you show the people and debut what you'll be sipping on for our talk today?
Yeah, more than happy. I'm double beving it today because I couldn't make up my mind. I got the Polar Seltzer, the Ginger Lime Mule. I've been
Okay.
trying to find this for like a long fucking time, and I just saw it at the grocery store while I was buying this guy, which is my Clear Mind kombucha. This is my favorite flavor of the Brew Doctor shit.
That's
Yeah, so
it's very funny that you are checking that kombucha flavor because that's my wife's favorite flavor, and I bought one
Wow.
yesterday. Like literally, like made a stop just to get that.
Yeah, this is I if I'm gonna go buy one, this is the one I usually get.
Hmm.
There's only one other kombucha that like takes the spot above this for me, but I can never find it. It's the Health Aid one, and it's like it's also like a mint one. I think it's like a mint lime, and
Hmm.
it just like it eludes me every fucking time. But this is the next best thing. So I'm double beving it today. This is I think I had coffee this morning too, so I'm gonna have to pee probably in the middle of this.
Right. I have I guess a kombucha related question, but before I get to that, I'll showcase what I'm drinking. Um,
Yeah.
just coming back from Hold Your Ground, I think I realized this morning that I was like pretty sparse on the beverage choices. So I'm actually drinking something that I didn't go out of my way to get, but I am excited to give it a taste because it'll be my first time. So
Okay.
my wife picked up some Orangina sparkling or sparkling Orangina,
Orangina's
I guess.
Orangina's the move. Yep.
So, if anyone that knows me and like if it wasn't obvious with some of the items that are kind of placed around my office, orange is my favorite flavor. I'm gonna shout out Molly from Gridiron, who's an incredible artist. As soon as he posted this sign that says "Orange You Happy Now," I was like, I need that in my life. So I'm drinking that. My I will give you my initial review off of the first sip. Are you an Orangina fan yourself?
Oh yeah, Orangina's hella good. I don't ordinarily go out of my way to get it, but when it's there, I'm like, yeah, I'm in. Let's go.
Definitely feels like um very like similar to a San Pellegrino, but oh, just as much sugar as the San Pellegrino.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I
Oh
think
yeah.
I think in the early Bevs days for me, I was like just crushing those all the time, and then I was like, oh, I feel so shitty. So this is kind of a nice kind of change of pace, and I kind of like the more Red Bull size of can versus like just the shorter, regular pop or soda
It just
size.
it kind of it feels better for some reason. There's just something about holding that size of can. You're just like, yeah,
Yeah,
this is yeah.
yeah. So my kombucha question that I wanted to ask you: Are
Yeah.
you big on kombucha first off, or is that like kind of just your one and only?
I recently I am. It took me a long time to come around to it. But if I'm gonna go grab a bev, I'm usually aiming for the kombucha first. If not that or like a Red Bull or something like that.
Got you. Do you know who GT Dave is?
I've heard the name, but like is he the dude who runs GT's kombucha?
Yes.
I would
So
assume so.
he's, I guess, nicknamed the Kombucha King. And there
Okay.
was a YouTube video where there's a YouTuber who's he's originally from Calgary actually, so he's Canadian, but
Oh,
he lives down in Los Angeles, and him and I guess his like YouTube channel partner were goofing on him because there was like a GQ video about him, and he like just the way that his house is set up, and just like it's kind of like he's got the mind of like Kanye West, like everything is just very particular, and he's like he opens his fridge and it's only kombucha, like shit like that. So they were goofing on him,
okay.
and then they ended up like, he invited them like to his house. So like they made a video where they were entering his house and just like talking about all the things that they saw in the video just in person. And like this GQ video was like just over the top crazy. Like, he's, standing with like his pet owl and like petting it, and just like these really wacky shots. And then, but it was cool that they kind of had a goof of it, but then they actually talked to him about it, and they're like, oh yeah, that's just like, that was all in the making of that GQ video where they're like, okay, stand here and do this. And he's like, this is so unnatural for me. And then they kind of made him just like look like a buffoon. But the fact that his name is actually GT and he's like just this kombucha business millionaire or whatever, is wild. So, and anytime I think of
Yeah.
kombucha, I think of GT Dave.
I wanna meet this guy because he's let me tell you, I'm a fan of GT Dave. I'm really just now aware of his name because like I've heard his name in the past and like I think probably someone has referenced that video because I've heard specifically be like, oh yeah, it's like he's kind of crazy, you know. But it's funny that they like propped him up to look wilder than he actually is. That's
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
no, but shout out GT Dave
Yeah.
if you're listening, shout out, big fan.
If you're listening and you want to do a scoped exposure podcast, Bev collab, you know, you have my vote. I'm a fan of you and believe in what you do. Cheers to you,
Scowl can use
Cole.
the sponsorship.
Scowl could
Hey,
use a
cheers to
sponsorship
you.
as well. You guys are,
Double Bev
yeah,
cheers.
double Bev cheers. That's right. Speaking of Bev sponsorships, you know, as far as the time we're recording this, because again, season 3 is going to be kicking back in the very beginning of October. So the timing
Cool.
of when someone is hearing this, it might feel dated. But as far as the
Yeah.
time of recording it, something that is, you know, kind of really relevant is the Scowl and Pabst Blue Ribbon collab as far as the
Yeah.
shirts and all that. And it was funny that you guys posted it and it like apparently sold out online. And I think I was
Mhm.
DMing you guys like, are you bringing any of those to Scope 5? And you're like, obviously.
Of
So
course.
is there anything that you want to, you know, tell the story about that before we get into some of like the behind the scenes or not behind the scenes, but more of the lore of Cole when it comes to heavy music? I think I just want to keep the topics in check there.
Yeah, no, of course. I to be completely honest, I don't like in terms of Scowl, I don't do any dealings in terms of like talking to people in that manner. Like 100% that was all like Scowl Cat and Malachi, but probably more specifically Malachi.
Sure.
But um I mean, based off of my understanding, I assume they kind of were just like, hey, like y'all are sick, we're a fan, let's do a collab. And we are like, duh, like that's fucking awesome. Like that's sick as fuck.
Mm,
And we hit up Chris Wilson to do the design. He of course did our album art. He's done like 20 shirt designs for us at this point. Big fan, shout out Chris. And yeah, and he killed the album the t-shirt design and they were just like, cool, like we're gonna here's some shirts and yeah, that's basically it. Like there's
mm,
really there isn't a whole lot more to it. It's just yeah, they're just reached out and we got it all together.
yeah.
And I think they're gonna send us some free PBR, but
Well,
what's funny is I don't think anyone in Scowl is actually drinking at the moment. So um it's gonna
as
be
you
some
say that
rainy
with your
day.
X watch on your hand.
Yeah, exactly. It's some rainy day. Some rainy day stock. You know.
Right. Yeah, yeah. But I don't know. It is cool because I think Scowl for me, I've always seen that band as a band to say yes to things that are quote unquote unconventional. So whether that's like
Yeah.
specific tours or doing things like that, like, and I think that can come with some quote unquote criticism or people that can think that's whack or whatever. But I really think that at the state of where the scene is and some of those kind of opportunities that not only are just happening for Scowl, but are for happening for Knock Loose, Zulu, and a number of other bands. I think that those are just base hits to just making this underground scene bigger and
Hmm.
still keeping it underground and having it be DIY and all that. But it allows there to be more entry points and more exposure to some of those things. Like, you know, I'm sure there's probably new Scowl fans because PBR did that collab, and I think that's a great
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I agree. I mean, I 100% I agree with everything you're saying. I mean, it's just like it's hardcore right now is kind of bigger than it ever has been, like in its entire lifetime. And it's like, why would we squander like not necessarily taking advantage of like how like popular it is at the moment, but like it is, and it's like we're a part of it. So like, why would we not and be a part of it? You know,
Mhm.
and it's just like if a company wants to do a collab with us, be it something as big as PBR or something like a smaller company, which I'm always, I'm literally I just growing the brand and of not just Scowl, but just of hardcore in general.
Right.
It's like business is good, like, and like I also I don't know if I can like speak on them because it's not my bands, but I know of other bands that are gonna be like collabing with PBR as well,
Mm.
and it's like it's like we're not the first and we're not gonna be the last.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's the same thing that I think of when I see Turnstile get on a late night show. It's like that is just the
Yeah.
beginning of other bands to be able to do that. Obviously, like it might be a few more years before Knock Loose is getting on a late night show because like the genre differences between those bands are,
Mhm.
Turnstiles potentially a little bit more palpable for other bands, but like Tsunami doing like collabs with like local sports teams, like it
Yeah.
doesn't need to be the biggest, most corporatized thing or the smallest, mom and pop shop business. I think that there's a lot of potential in the in between. And the other thing too is that like I would argue that PBR as like a quote unquote cheap beer for local DIY bar shows is like the go-to choice versus
Yeah.
if it was like Scowl and Blue Moon or like, something
Yeah.
like that, I'd be like, that's a little like that's cool, but like it wouldn't make as much sense to me. When I saw Paps, I was like, oh, that totally makes sense.
It adds it's just like it just makes sense, and it's
Mhm.
just like, and obviously I don't drink, but of everyone in the band that does drink, everyone also just loves PBR.
Mhm.
Like that's just it just like it just makes sense. It's like it like no matter how big of a corporate company they are, it's like it's just it's our vibe. It's like so it's like why would we not fit in together?
Totally.
And yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm glad that we hit on that. I always think a episode is off to a good start when there's like, what are we at? Like almost 15 minutes in, and we've specifically only talked about kombucha, bevs, and PBR, and things attached to that. But Cole,
Oh yeah.
let's go way back in time and let's get a little bit of context about you and how you got into drumming and just music in general. So, like, tell me the origin story of like how you discovered like maybe just like first music and then how that
Mhm.
transition into more punk and DIY came into the picture for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the way I grew up, music was always around me. My mom specifically, she raised me on like AC/DC and Ozzy, Guns N' Roses, Van Halen, Metallica, all that shit. Like all the old, like the hard rock and the metal of like the 70s to the 90s. Like I literally woke up, and when I was in elementary school, I woke up like every single morning with her putting a boombox at full volume in me and my brother's room and playing Blizzard of Oz. And it's like that's how I woke up in the morning. It's
That was
like,
your
hey,
alarm
like
system?
that was literally my alarm. Like she wakes up, puts that shit in there, and she goes and makes us lunch.
Mhm.
And it was also like the same CD. Like when I got in the car and she picked me up from school, Over the Mountain would be playing as soon as she picked me up, and it's just like I that's still my favorite Ozzy song to this day.
Hmm.
And I always loved that. And like she got into like some of the new metal stuff like in the late 90s, early 2000s when it was popular. Like her and my older brother got me into like Disturbed and Linkin Park and stuff like that. And Linkin Park was like my first favorite band as a child. Like I Hybrid Theory is still one of my favorite albums.
Yeah.
Um I yeah, I just like, I was always into that. And then the kids I grew up with, just I kind of got lucky and they also kind of happened to like the same stuff. There was a time where I lived on the street, and there was three other houses that had kids, and they're all a little bit older than me, and each of them had their own like different brand of like rock music that they listened to. We all kind of like came together and like all just like shared. Like there's these two kids, and they showed me like Slipknot and Three Days Grace and stuff like that. And then there's another kids, and they were like the Christian kids, so they showed me like Skillet and shit like that. And then there's this other kid, and his name is Brandon, and he's the one that like I stuck around with the most. Um, and eventually, like he got into like Warp Tour stuff. Like
Okay.
he showed me like he showed me like A Day to Remember and The Devil Wears Prada, like all like a Skylit Drive, like all that shit back then. And I like fell in love with that just from him like showing me all that stuff. And him and I like I would go to Warp Tour with him. He was 3 years older than me, but he was like a family friend. So he would pick me up from school in high school and just like we would just like drive like 2 or 3 hours to a show. But like I would like my like sanctioned by my dad, he would come pick me up at like lunch. And I would miss sorry, I burped. I would miss
You
like
don't
my
have to
last
apologize
period.
for burping on the podcast.
I'm gonna burp a lot. I got two very carbonated beverages right
No,
now.
you're good. The burping is welcomed.
Okay, good. I don't even know if you can pick it up with my AirPods, but it's fine. But yeah, no, him and I like we just like would go to shows all the time together. And he actually when I was like I met him probably when I was like 8 or 9, and he had already kind of been into the drums, and he was kind of like an older brother to me, so I kind of just like took after whatever he did. And
Okay.
so I was also like, oh, like I want to play the drums too. And he had like a drum set at his house, so I would like go and practice, like play on his kit every once in a while. But me and all those kids in the street were also really into playing Rock Band and Guitar Hero. And so like also any song that was on there was immediately our new favorite song.
Right.
And I actually like it's kind of how I taught myself how to play drums because like I didn't really like I'm really into gaming as well, and to be able to put playing music and gaming together, I literally like got home from school every day in middle school and just played Rock Band drums like all day long, and that's realistically like how I taught myself the basics of playing drums. Like that's like realistically where I got my start. I had a drum kit, like I could have gone out into the garage and played it, but I wanted to play video games.
Right.
So but like it kind of translates because I was, I was able to like separate my feet from my hands and everything.
Mhm.
And so yeah, that's kind of, I like got into just playing that, and like thankfully they were like putting songs like they were putting like Asking Alexandria songs on there. So I was like,
Right.
yeah, like I'm fucking in. Like I'm gonna buy the double bass add on and everything.
Right.
Um and yeah, and so like it wasn't until like high school, like junior year of high school, that I really actually got into hardcore. um I didn't start I went to I went to my first show I think at the beginning of my sophomore year, like my first local show, which would have been like the end of 2012. um and I just like my friends had started bands. I had tried to start bands, but like I just my friends were already doing it, so I was like, okay, I had these friends that I was going to high school with, and they had one of them was like a metalcore band, like a straight just like metalcore band called The Rest Will Fall.
Mhm.
And members actually went on to be in Mugshot, and I'm still like homies with all of
Oh,
them
shout out to
to this day.
Mugshot. That band fucking
Yeah,
rips.
yeah.
I
Shout out
love.
Mugshot. Those
I feel like that was one of my favorite because that EP came out in 2020, right?
I think so. Yeah,
I think that was one of my favorite EPs that came out on that year.
it was a ripper for sure. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm stoked that those guys are still like rocking as hard as they are. The Connor, their drummer, who also plays in
Mhm.
Fox Lake. Yeah. Yeah. I think he moved to Colorado like a few years ago, and I hadn't seen him actually until Prom Core of 2021 because Fox Lake was playing. Um,
Right. Cool.
but yeah, no, it's I went to high school with him. He was actually the guitar player of my very first band. He played I think one show with us. And
That's
like
so awesome.
the very first lineup, he was the guitar player
Mhm.
or the bass player, one of the two. He was in it. And the original singer of Mugshot, Eli, was the drummer. Um so yeah, it was like I've known those guys for a while, and then there's this other band called From the Messenger, and they were like also metalcore, but like more on the hardcore side. Like they really liked To the Wind
Mhm.
and like 100th and shit like that,
Yeah.
but they wanted to be like a little like they wanted to have like a little heavier breakdowns.
Sure.
Um and so I was just kind of like the secret member of both bands because I would go to every single one of their shows. I would like help out, like sell merch for them. I would like do guest vocal spots for them like all the time. I was just kind of like I was always like the groupie of those two bands.
Right.
And the guitar player, one of the guitar players are From the Messenger, is is this guy Hendrick, and you guys people might know him better by his online persona Dewey.
Oh yeah,
He's
Dewey, of
yeah,
course.
he's a fantastic artist and my best friend. Give a shout out to Dewey. I'm sorry for exposing your real name, but whatever. People know it doesn't fucking matter. Um, but yeah, no, he was a guitar player, and at first I did not fucking like him at all.
Hmm.
We were not friends because in middle school, like I was really into Warp Tour stuff, like I said, but like no one at my school liked it at all.
Hmm.
So I was like, I tried to get some of my friends who I played games with into it. Like I got a couple friends into like All That Remains and stuff like that, but like they were gonna go to shows with me or anything.
Hmm.
But I always had like the Hot Topic rubber wristbands. Like I had like at least three on each arm. I had like Bring Me the Horizon, like a bright pink one, fucking like Alisana and all that shit.
Right.
And
The classic "I love boobs"
I
wristband.
had that. It was stolen from me, and I bought another one. Like
Oh,
I had yeah. But I would always see Hendrick. He was a great younger than me. I'd always see him walking around with like red stonewashed jeans and like a no effects shirt with like a mohawk.
mm.
And one day he walked up to me and he was like, "Hey, like I know all the bands on your wristbands," and I was so excited because I didn't have any friends that were into that,
Right.
and I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, they all suck." He just walked away, and I was like, "Fuck that motherfucker for life!" Like I hate him like forever
And then
now.
fast forward to
Um,
now, you're in a band with him.
now I'm in a band with him. I've been in like 10 bands with him. He's my best friend. Um, but yeah, no, like we finally like actually like when he went started going to high school. He was a freshman. I was a sophomore.
Right.
We were in the same circle, so like we hung out, and then from the messenger, I'd kind of stopped doing stuff, and I wanted to be in a band, and he was like, "Well, let's start a band." I was like, "Yeah, I'm down." And again, I only knew how to play drums. He was like, "You're gonna sing for it," and I was like, "Okay, like you say so. I don't know what to do." And so him and I like wrote and recorded a demo of our first band. It was called Back X Burner. It was a straight edge band, but I think by the first or second show, only half the people in the band were straight edge. So it's how it
More of a
goes. Um
backslash than an X.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. A hyphen, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
dotted line. Um,
Yeah, exactly. An ellipses.
yeah, yeah. Um, man, Cole, you give me so many things that I want to.
I'm sorry.
No, no, no,
I'm
it's
just
good.
I'm
I'm
word
enjoying.
vomiting right
I'm
now.
I'm learning so much about your story, and it's really fascinating. The first thing I think is really cool because everyone's got their own unique story, but I do think that there's a large majority of two camps when it comes to discovering quote unquote heavier
Mm,
music. And you were in the camp of having, parents that were like, oh, yeah, we listened to Metallica and we listened to Pantera and we listened to like this guitar music, so to speak. And
oh yeah.
um, it was just so natural to like,
Hmm.
discover like the Warp Tour bands and some of that. And then I was more in the camp where it's like I grew up on, like my grandma would only play ABBA in like the car when she was like driving me around. And it was like,
That's sick too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There was like a lot of like cool music, but nothing heavier. And it was almost me discovering something felt like, whoa, what is this thing? And having this like level of like I'm the only one that knows about it when like there's thousands, if
Yeah,
not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people now around the world that know about it. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I think that's interesting where it's like, yeah, like your wake up call from your mom is just a boombox just blasting a full blast. When for me it was just my mom being like, get up for school or whatever. So I think that's a better way to raise your kids. And something else that I
Yeah.
think is interesting too on that trajectory, if you're introducing heavier music, if you're a parent and just it's just normalized to those kids, there's definitely
Hmm.
people that like may not go out and start bands and be like, oh, that's just the music that my mom and dad like and I'm not into that, and that's totally fine. But like sometimes when I'm at a show or a festival and I see like the person with their young child or like their even teenage daughter or son or whatever, it's like it's cool to be like, man, is this person in like 10 years going to be fronting the biggest band in the world? Like, that's where my
Yeah,
mind starts to go. But it is cool just to like, as cheesy as it sounds, like start them young but also allowing them to find their own path with their music interests.
yeah, no, 100%. I feel like, I'm not gonna like. I feel like it's almost a more rare case for like people to like actually get into what their parents listen to and stick with that.
Right.
Because I mean, like you said, it's like, oh yeah, that's just like my mom listens to that kind of shit.
Hmm.
But I mean, like a great example is like when Scowl was just doing the Destroy Boys tour back this summer. Um, a lot of the people there were underage, and so they would come with their parents. And it's cool because like almost every night we would have like at least a parent come up and be like, "Oh, like like this is like what I really like." Obviously, like, I'm stoked that my kid likes punk of any like form because Destroy Boys is more like an indie punk band.
Mm.
But they're like, "Yo, like you guys are like a hardcore band. Like you sound like Negative Approach." We're like, "Yeah, you get it."
Yeah.
And it's like they're like, "Cool." Like I didn't know bands like this still existed. We're like,
Right.
"Yeah," but it's like, but yeah, it's cool that like they can like I it's cool that like kids can actually like connect with that on a level. I mean, like with me personally, I'm so happy that I didn't hear that and be like, fuck that, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. I think the second thing that I want to break down is how you were just talking about how Rock Band almost taught you more how to play drums than actually just sitting down and playing drums itself. Because that was
Hmm.
it's you saying that as far as the time of doing this interview was very funny because at Hold Your Ground Fest there was another Calgary band that Endgame was flying out with, and by the time that we had landed in Toronto, they had a fill-in situation where they had canceled. And within 5 hours, it was like, we're trying to figure out a way that like other people can fill in. And for me, I am a guitar player, but like
Hmm.
I was like watching the iPhone videos of the playthroughs, and I was like, the chording is not something that I'm like used to, and I feel like I would butcher it if given the amount of time to do this. And for
Yeah.
me, like I've played drums live in front of like when I was like doing youth group in church and things like that, but like never in a hardcore setting. So it's almost been
Yeah.
this like silver bullet that like I've never really showcased. And I was like, okay, if Brock, who's the drummer of this band, who also knows how to play guitar, can play the guitar, I'll play the drums. And people were like, you can play drums? And I was like, well, we're gonna see. And like I
I'll give
feel
him my
like
best shot. Yeah.
yeah, like all things considered, I think we did a pretty bang up job. Like there was no like stops or anything like that. And like looking back at like the footage, I was like, damn, okay. So now I'm like, now I want to play drums in a band. And so
Yeah.
I'm in the midst of that. But it is so funny because in Guitar Hero or Rock Band world, like there's actually a clear connection between I guess the practice or what teaches you to actually play that instrument, while Guitar
Mhm.
Hero and Rock Band for guitar is like not real. It
No.
almost is harder. There's like
Yeah.
videos of people of bands trying to play their songs on Guitar Hero, and it's like, some whammy part that's just kind of doing this is like this crazy tapping thing, and Herman Lee from
Yeah.
Dragon Force is like having the worst time of his life. So I don't know. I just felt like that was something that I wanted to add in there as far as like that being like Rock Band and Guitar Hero, I fully believe got a lot of people into this style of music, but I think Rock
Mhm.
Band drums specifically actually taught people how to play drums.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't name anyone off the top of my head at the moment, but I can remember talking about this with other people and other people sharing the same experience. Like, yeah, 100%. Like, I also like that's kind of how I like got the gist of it
Mhm.
because it's like I feel like if you're gonna you were saying like playing Guitar Hero is much harder than actually playing guitar. I think I remember Guitar Hero 3. I think came with a video on it of Slash trying to play a song, and he's like, what the fuck is I
Right.
can't do this shit.
Right.
It was either Slash or Tom Morello or something like that. But I feel like the only thing realistically that you can like get out of that is the dexterity. Like obviously it like just playing the five buttons doesn't translate, but like if you can like actually get your fingers and your hand to like do that shit, it's like
Right.
that's something. But
Yeah.
like whereas with drums, it's like you're almost like playing tabs but just
Totally.
with drums.
Yeah.
It's basic. It's like like I especially like I think Guitar Hero 3, they even like you could have bought a pro edition that came with like cymbals and it came with like like a pedal for the hi-hat, like to close it and open it and stuff.
Hmm.
And like if you throw all that shit in the mix, you are playing a drum kit.
Right.
Like you are literally just playing an electric drum kit.
Hmm.
And like, yeah, no, it's like it fuck. I mean, I'm here, it works. I might not work amazingly. I'm not the best drummer in the world, but like, it worked enough. Like
Right.
I get to tour and stuff. I get to play in bands. So yeah, no, it's like I'm grateful that like I have this like eternal struggle where like obviously like I love playing music and I want to practice and like master my craft, but I also really love playing video games. Like I'm that's why I literally just yeah, I love so it's like to be able to put those two things together. It's like I don't know if I didn't have that, I don't know if I'd be here today.
Totally.
So
And I feel like I'm very similar to you. Like I think video games were kind of like my first love before music,
mhm.
and what if it wasn't for like video games like the Halo 2 soundtrack where they had like Breaking
Breaking
Benjamin and
Benjamin,
Hoobastank
yeah,
and like all of those
yeah.
kind of new metal nods. Like even the fact like I've talked about this before, so I apologize if this story has been retold, but it's still so crazy to me. Um, Marty O'Donnell, who did all the scoring for the original Halo games before uh, Bungie handed that over to 343, did an interview where
Mhm.
they were talking about, for Halo 2, they wanted to just amp it up off of I think it's the Gregorian monk, ooh, like all that kind of shit.
Yeah,
So they
yeah.
got like they got like the crazy guitar dive bombs and like I've watched the studio video where they're just like messing around with stuff and I'm getting goosebumps just even talking about it because it's so wild just to see like his face like just fucking hitting that
Dude, it's
like
you'll
all
have to
that
send me
shit.
that video because like that's like one of the sickest riffs I can think that
Yes,
it's
totally.
so fucking hard.
So when they were talking about that, Marty O'Donnell said that like huge executive Microsoft people were really against it because like Halo 2 was like their flagship game for,
Yeah.
kickstarting like the Xbox and blah blah blah. And they were like really pushing for him to take it out. And he essentially said fuck you and like put it in the game and he believed in it and I fully believe without that quote unquote guitar music that was embedded in this huge first person shooter game like it's a huge reason that I'm like sitting here in this chair talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely, dude, that game would not be the same game without that. Like,
Totally.
that's like obviously like Halo 1 was incredible, like in and of itself. Like I fucking love that game. I love the Halo series. But like, dude, like the second, like as an impressionable child, like who already liked guitar music, hearing that shit, I was like, and like what like, learning that they're putting bands I like also in it, and like finding out about Breaking Benjamin because of that shit. I mean, yeah, I was like, I'm right there with you. I'm like, dude, like this is the sickest shit of all time. And shout out to Marty O'Donnell for that shit, dude.
Yeah.
That's
Shout
my
out to
man.
Mario Donald and Steve Vai, who is like down for it. I
Mhm.
literally just pulled up the tab, so I'm gonna send it to you as soon as we're done this interview.
Please,
Um,
please.
and I think the one last thing, Cole, before we start to talk about the actual bands that you're doing, because again, this chat has just brought up so many cool things. Something that you had mentioned is like before actually like being in bands, you were just that person that was like the quote unquote unofficial member or the groupie that was always just being involved in
Yeah.
multiple projects and like doing load ins and doing guest spots. Like in today's hardcore, like I almost think that that is such an important step for people.
Mhm.
Like before, if they're struggling to find people to jam with or whatever, just like to be involved is such like it teaches you so much about just the culture and like how
Mhm.
things actually go versus like what you're seeing online. So like do you think if you were just starting off and just playing in bands like things would be totally different as far as your trajectory? Like how crucial was that to be like, be a spectator and an active spectator and participant that way?
Yeah. I feel like I do feel like it was crucial to like when I actually did start my first band, which was probably 2 years after the fact of like being that person for my friends' bands. Um, I mean, I feel like I'm pretty good at just like reading a room and just like getting like the vibe. It's like, okay, like this is kind of, this is what I should be doing. And like, I also just like, I loved the music and like the culture and like I was like so like obsessed with it, just like learning it, like when I being fresh into it, that literally having any sort of part, whether that be, being that for my friends' bands or just showing up, like I was just like I was so eager to be a part of it. And it's like so like I was just like I was definitely like a little bummed that I didn't have my own band. Um before the Rest Will Fall had started, like half the people in that band they were gonna doing a different band, and I was actually like they hit me up like, oh, like you should be the drummer. And I was like, yeah, cool, because they like just found out I played drums.
Mm.
And we wrote like 2 songs, and then they were like and then they were like you to me and one of there's 2 guitar players in From the Messenger. The second guitar player that's not Hendrik, him and I, they were like, they told us like, dude, you guys don't take this seriously enough. Like, you can't be here. So they did a different band with it. But, so I technically was in the very first iteration of The Rest Will Fall, but they were like, nah. But I still was there. Like, I was like, I'm still going to show up to all the shows, I'm still, but like, yeah, no, to answer your question, I think like I do think it like made a difference for when I actually did um like start doing band stuff, because it's like I kind of already had a leg up and like I already kind of knew the layout,
Mhm.
and it's like I kind of already like knew how to get on a show. Um I knew how to just like be respectful, and just like kind of know the landscape of everything.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, to answer your question, I think it was majorly beneficial, and I think being in that position is great for anyone. Like I'm almost like glad I did that instead of just being in a band right off the bat, because it's like again like I kind of like it doesn't really matter now, but when it first started, like yeah, it definitely helped me. It was and it was cool to just kind of be like supportive and like be involved without actually having the responsibilities of anything.
Yeah, and I think like sometimes when, I think when you do band stuff or if you're what we're talking about and you're just kind of like rolling with your friends and you're able to do
Mm.
that, it still teaches you like, in those moments where people need to step up, whether it's like,
Mhm.
oh, someone broke their drum pedal and then we're like, okay, let's find and scramble a way to do this, or like loading in and out of gear. And like over time it like at playing at different levels, like or festivals or bigger tours, it's like, okay, like there's either other people to do that or like that's on someone else. And but I don't know. Sometimes there's almost like an embedded thing in anything hardcore wise where it's like if something's going wrong or someone needs a hand to hold the door open at the very, very least, it's like it's no question because that's just what you do at the show. It's not just like
Yeah.
this is not just a music event where there are people in different roles. Like this is a community that is all together putting on this whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually I'm glad you brought that up, because as I'm talking, I'm kind of forgetting exactly what I want to say. But um being a part of like the DIY, like, having that DIY like mindset built into me is like I feel like especially now especially now like with as much as Scowl's doing at the moment, I feel like it's like me and the rest of the band, like all of us kind of having this DIY mentality of being born with that. And like we don't when we got into the music scene, um I feel like that's kind of like it sets us apart in a certain way, and it sets everyone with that kind of mentality and within the DIY scene, because it's like you said, it's not we're not just at a show. Like I'm not just at like a concert and like it's this is a community, and it's like a not to sound corny, but it's truly like a lifestyle. Like without like a DIY mentality, I don't know where I'd be now, not just music wise, but in general, because it literally affects everything I do in my life.
Mhm.
So it's it's just like it comes natural. It makes sense, you
Mhm.
know? It almost just feels like common sense to me, you know?
Yeah.
That I almost kind of want to just boil it down to it's just common sense. But
Right.
like obviously that's not totally, and like other people come up in different situations. Like we've met people now who don't come from a DIY background, and it's like, oh, like we do not like we don't click on like on the same thing. Like obviously I can like sit here and talk to you and like we're friends, but like there are certain things that you just I don't get that you do and you don't get that I do. And it's
Yeah.
like I don't know, it's interesting. Like it's just all I know, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, but I do think that it is interesting to, like, first off, always remembering is, like, I think of it in the way that the more that I learn about something, the more that I'm like, "Oh, like, I am still a student. I still have a
Yeah.
lot more to learn about booking shows or, like, what it takes to actually do a festival or, like, the way that I film stuff or even just, like,
Hmm.
small like, one thing that I've noticed, I think because it's, like, Canadian hardcore has been so spoiled in, like, 1 month of having Wild Rose, Scope 5, and Hold Your Ground, so in
Yeah.
those 3 festivals, like, something that I've noticed is, seeing when people are, like, stage diving and anyone who's, like, standing on stage, whether they're, like, part of the crew of the band or just a friend of a friend. I can't remember exactly who it was, but I would see when it was, like, the stands were, like, really close to the stage and people who were stage diving, instead of just, like, just letting things play out and then, like, guitar not guitar, but mic stands are getting kicked over and then people having to catch them. I can't remember where I saw it, but I watched one dude anytime someone was coming, like, in the pathway of that, he would just grab the base of the stand and just hold that. And there was multiple times where I saw, like, the edge of the person's, Nike high top or like the shoes of any kind are like just hitting it, but like having that person doing
Yeah.
that. And I was like, that's such a smart thing. Just like if you're on
Hmm.
stage, it's almost your unofficial responsibility of just like that can go a long way versus like someone's getting a SM58 to the teeth or whatever it is. So,
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's like no one really has the mentality of like that's not my job, you know.
right.
Like it's like the show must go on. So it's
Mhm.
like whether you have any official hand in this or not, you're a part of making this go on. Of whether it be you just showing up or you like standing on stage watching, and like you said, like someone like about to knock something over. It's like, oh yo, I got it. Don't
Yeah.
worry. Like I feel like every time anytime like a pit gets like kind of gnarly, like immediately I see the monitors kind of start wobbling, and like I immediately see 10 hands like go up and be like, oh shit, like
Right.
I got it. So like yeah, no, 100%. I notice that all the time, and it's like that's what it's all about, you know. It's like
Mhm.
if everyone just kind of fucked off, and this wouldn't exist because everything would literally just physically fall apart.
Yeah. And there's definitely certain scenarios where it's like, I think the very bare bones thing is like if someone is diving and falls, you pick them up immediately. And 10
Yeah.
hands are grabbing. Like I remember specifically as a kid like diving to like a Day to Remember or like some bands and I would fall and then it's almost like spiritual to be grabbed by 10 people and hoisted within like point 0.5 of a second. Um
Yeah,
so there's
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 really nothing like it.
it really isn't. So there's that, but then there's also certain scenarios where it's like almost having the common sense, like you said, to am I best suited to assess this issue? And so, there's
Mhm.
definitely been times where, as a drummer, I'm sure you've run into this a number of times where a cymbal is kind of fallen or wonky, and it's one thing to
All the
put it
time.
back, and there's another where it's like I actually have the experience of adjusting like a boom stand. But again, that experience can be learned very quickly in a matter of a show or a couple shows of just helping a band out. And then you're like, oh, now I know how to adjust this arm. And I'm someone that can help in that scenario versus like I'm
Mhm.
going on stage and then I'm like making it worse or something like that. So I think it
Yeah.
it definitely is like it is there are certain moments where it's instinctual to help, and I would also encourage that there are certain things that if you know that you're not experienced to assess why someone's bass is cutting in and out, maybe, look for the person that you're standing 4 people apart to be like, "Hey, you should go and help and do that because I know you have an Ampeg or whatever it is.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I know I do not know how to play guitar or bass. I do not know how any of the gear works. So it's anything I see that happen. I'm like, not me.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like, if I see Bailey or Malachi in the vicinity, I'm just like, yo, 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 like some shit's going on. And oftentimes, and more often than not, they're already on their way up there anyway.
Mhm.
But I can't tell you how many times some shit's fallen apart on stage for me, and like I've had people run up and fix it for me. Like I've had people literally like the kick drums are moving so bad. I've had people literally sit like literally just like sit on the stage and hold the bass drum for the entire set so that it doesn't fucking move. Like it's just it's and like I've helped fix people's stuff live like multiple times myself, but it's like and again, but like you mentioned, you don't even have to be a drummer to do that.
Right.
It's just a matter of seeing something happening and being like, oh, I got this, and just like making sure everything's all good. And yeah, it only takes like a couple times for you to just be like, oh, I can kind of just do that now.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, now I know how to set up a drum set. It's not that fucking hard, you
Right.
know?
And now I know how to play drums, and now I can play drums, and it just goes and goes.
Yeah, it's a tumbling
Tumbleweed.
snowball effect.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
tumbleweed. Yeah, yeah.
So I feel like that's a good transition into, one of the questions I had, because I think as a very experienced drummer yourself, and, us talking about like scenarios where it's like outside of our control, or like, there are things that just go awry during a set. What do you think is like the biggest quote unquote drum hack that you've learned in all the years of playing drums that you just apply on the daily, or whenever you're playing a show, you're like, it is very crucial for me to do X?
Yeah. Oh man, that is a good question. I I mean, like this is kind of a given, but like especially while we've been touring lately, I have not been able to use my own drum kit just because it's much more convenient to use someone else's, and I don't want to hold up the show being like I have to use mine, you know.
Sure.
Um, I'd say that being open to just using someone else's gear for the sake of time and comfortability of literally everyone, um, just being flexible. But I mean, it's kind of a given, but I make sure everything is as tight as humanly possible. Like someone taught me taking two sticks and putting them like putting the nut in between them and just like tightening them like with that. And I've
Oh, like
had
if you
like
don't have a
my
drum key.
no, no, no. Like it's like the actual like the ones that you do screw by hand. Like taking two
Oh.
sticks and just like tightening it beyond belief.
Oh, so
Because
if you're finger tightening it, that would be like the actual crank to like make sure it's.
exactly,
Oh, okay, I understand.
exactly. And like I know that everyone's probably being like, yeah, no shit, you know. But
Not me.
um,
I'm sure a lot of
yeah,
people are like, I've never thought of it that way.
I I didn't learn it until like probably like 2 or 3 years ago. And my friends that I have recorded many times in the past with, Charles Toshio, who plays in No Right. Give a shout out to Charles real quick.
Major shout out.
Um, major shout out.
Love that man.
We I me too. I'm in he just messaged the Discord I'm in right now. Um but yeah, no. I he like showed me that while we were recording one day, and I was like, oh, okay, all right, that's smart. Um and I'm trying to think. I Okay, I would say one specific one that I've been taught, and maybe again, maybe this is another no shit moment, but this is just like when I found out. When I was like really like actually taking it seriously, I would always ask Tim and Sammy from Drain, like, what do you guys do to tune your drums? Because like I know, oh, like there are some people, it's very rare, but some people that I will tune it to like an actual tuning.
Right.
And to this day, I don't know how to fucking do that.
Mhm.
And I just kind of like I twist shit until it sounds good. But they were like, dude, like especially with the snare, like just literally just like as tight as humanly possible, like until it feels like it's gonna break.
Mhm.
And if you look at my snare right now, I've had people like play it and be like, "Yo, is this thing okay?" Because the head is almost rising over the rim. Like it's so tight that it's just like it is like it looks like it's gonna bust. Like
Mhm.
but boy does that thing sound good. Not to like if you like if you just want like a loud ass snare, mine's got pretty decent ping to it too because I play a brass snare. Both the resonant and the batterhead, I like it just like to the point where it's about to pop. To
Mhm.
the like I've popped a resonant head doing that because I'm like, oh no, I can go a little bit tighter. While tuning it, just like it literally explodes. Um, so there's a fine line, but that's probably again might be a no shit moment, but I crank that shit.
Yeah.
That's my hack is just cranking shit.
Yeah, and
And
and nothing sounds better than a snare that sounds like a gunshot once it's going through a big PA system,
a,
so
exactly, I love watching videos back live, and it's like you can hear everything, but then it's just every time. It's like, yeah, that's right.
yeah,
You can
yeah,
hear
yeah.
that literally over everything else.
Mhm. So, I guess, like, living on the edge of tuning your snare that way, do you always have, like, extra, like, skins, like, on the go, or is that just, like,
I
you like to live a little dangerously?
I was living dangerously for quite a while just because of like I've never run into the problem of it breaking on me like in the middle of everything. It wasn't this was like at like January of this year that the resonant head broke on me, and I was like, oh, I should probably like start carrying extras with me.
Mhm.
So, but it was half like never having the problem to begin with, and also half being broke as shit. I'm like, I don't like I already spent $40 on these like $40 I don't have on these heads now.
Right.
I'm not going to go spend another $40 on heads I don't need at the moment. Like I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But now when I'm traveling, I definitely have like a handful of spare ones um for every drum that I have, just in case. And also like I haven't replaced my snare head in quite a while, but the the toms I like when I am actually playing them on tour, those will need to be replaced more often than not. That's something that a lot of people don't do, including me, is replacing the heads like more often than you probably think you need to.
Mhm.
Because like those things die quicker than I think they do. Because it's like you just get used to the sound, but then immediately once you put on new heads, you're like, oh, this is what it's supposed to
Yeah.
sound like. That's right. It's the same thing with bass strings. It's like no one replaces their bass strings, and you put new ones on. You're like, oh, that's right.
Right,
Oh yeah, I
right.
forgot.
Yeah,
Um,
and
yeah, no, I keep them on me.
yeah, and man, there's something to be said, like, as it's like drums, I think, are, like, one of the coolest instruments to play in the band because 'cause you're just, like, hitting shit and, like,
Yeah,
you got the best seat in the house and, like, there's people that, there's not guitar cam videos, there's drum cam videos, and people wanna see that
yeah,
stuff. But something to be said about the amount of wear and tear and replacing things, like, continue like, if you at the end of your life had the number as far as how much money you've spent on drums versus, someone buying like any guitar player can go out and buy, their dream amp, their dream cab, their dream guitar and have that for the rest of their life and like,
that's it.
and
They're
that's it.
good. They don't have to do it
Drums,
again.
it's like it it turns over like every year that you have to either replace something and like sticks alone, you're going through so much of that.
It's kind of bullshit to be honest. If you're asking me, it's horse shit.
Right.
It is and like the fact that how much everything costs too. Because like even if you want to get the lowest of low cymbals, it's still like they aren't gonna last that long. Like they're cheap for a reason. They're gonna
Right.
break easily.
Right.
And you're like for a whole set, you're still probably spending $300 or $400, like at the very bare minimum.
Mhm.
And you may as well buy the $1,000 set because at least those are going to last 6 months instead of two.
Right.
I literally like I every symbol I own right now is broken. I literally have like I thankfully I have warranty on like the set that I bought last year. I literally have new ones finally being shipped to me. Um, but it's like that shit's I spent $1,000 on a set of Zildjian customs, and that's not even like that bad, you know?
Right. Right.
And like those like one of the crashes that it came with it broke within like a month or two. Like it's like it's just like it's unrealistic to have to spend that much money all the fucking time. And like, thankfully, like with the shells, that in that case you are safe. You really shouldn't have to buy another one unless if you really want to. Um, or because it's like it's rare that those get damaged to a point where they're unplayable. Like they can get warped, they can get scratched, but like realistically, like it's gonna sound like a drum.
Yeah, it's
It's
like
not
a
gonna be the
guitar cab. It's like, the Tolux could get ripped and things, but like, if the speakers don't go, you could have that forever.
exactly. And yeah, no, it's just like I I've spent so much money on drum stuff over the years, and like thankfully, like Scowl is kind of getting to a point where we're able to put some stuff on the band, which is nice. It takes a huge load off of me. I'm still working on trying to get someone to give me shit at least for half off, if not for free.
Mhm.
If any drum company that makes any sort of product is listening right now, my name is Cole Gilbert. Please send me something. I play a lot of shows. I will tag you on Instagram. I don't give a fuck. I will sell out. Give me free stuff.
Dude,
um,
yeah, we gotta forward this to SJC and like all those companies. Do you have like a favorite that you would like to put it out into the world as far, or you're
I'm
just
a
you're keeping your arms wide open at this point?
my arms are wide open. I do have my preferences. Ludwig is that's my go-to. I love Ludwig kits. Anytime I get to play on one is a treat. I just played on Zach from Gel's Ludwig kit a couple days ago. He's got like a '60s kit, and it just sounds beautiful.
Mhm.
Um, I have my dream drum set right now, so I don't even need to buy another one ever. I have a full 1976 Ludwig Vistalite, and Rock Band is what made me want that kit, because that was like the most expensive kit you could buy in the game, and I was like, whoa, like
Oh,
I
it
was like,
all
you can
connects.
get a exactly. I was like, you can get a clear plastic kit, like that sounds awesome. And then like I just aesthetically, I was like, those just look cool. I would love to have a kit one day. And then like 3 or 4 years ago, I actually got to play on one, and I was like, this is the loudest thing I have ever heard in my entire life. I need to get one, and then I did, and it is still the loudest thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Right.
Um, and my snare is also a Ludwig too. I got a Black Beauty, and that's in game. Like I don't need another one. Like I am
Mhm.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a if Ludwig's listening,
We I
shout out Ludwig forever.
Well, nothing excites me more than being able to potentially clip this part of the podcast when you are posting, "Hey, I'm sponsored by Ludwig." So,
Yeah.
I'm hoping for that, especially for you. And I love the serendipity and potential of that happening. Um,
Hey, you and me both. I'm manifesting it.
Absolutely. Cole, you mentioned Gel as far as
Mhm.
using their drummer's kit, which is a nice transition into one of the things that I wanted to talk about. As
Yeah.
far as the time of recording this, a lot of videos have circulated online of Gel, Scowl, and uh, is I
Uh,
keep mixing up if it's Exhibition or
mhm.
Extinguish. Is it
Exhibition.
Exhibition? Okay. So
Mhm.
Exhibition, I don't know if there's another band that was playing, but there was a DIY Sonic drive-through show. So it's already
Yeah.
like it headlines, it's catching a lot of eyes and interest. So anything that you can tell about the behind the scenes of that. It sounds like the Scowl set was more of a surprise than a planned event.
Yeah. Yeah, it was Gel and Exhibition were doing a tour. I think they did like 4 or 5 days together. Chemical Fix from Philly also played. Shout out Chemical
Right,
Fix.
Chemical Fix.
Uh,
Great band.
and great band, love them. I love everyone in that band. And another band called Phantom, which I am not familiar with. I never listened to them prior to the show. They were fucking incredible. That
Mhm.
band was they blew my fucking mind, especially their drummer. I was talking to someone. I guess their drummer is a death metal drummer, which explains why they play the way they do. But I was like, my lord, like I think I posted a video, and I was talking with someone like, dude, like why don't they play with a double bass drum? I posted a video, and someone said someone needs to get this person a double bass drum. But they usually do. It's just they're playing a punk band, so they're doing single. But
Sure.
um, yeah, no, I remember seeing the show, like the flyer get announced for that show, and I was like, damn, like they're playing a show at a Sonic drive-in. Like, how the fuck is that gonna work? And this was months ago, and I guess the manager of that Sonic is a punk, and he was like, "Yo, dude, like I'll put shows on here. Like I don't give a fuck." And this is
That
just
is
what
so awesome.
that's what I'm assuming. That's what I'm gathering
Right.
from what people have told me. And I think our show the other day was the second show that they've had there. The first one, there's like an indoor area of that Sonic that's like behind everything that you saw, and that's where they put the first show. But I think this one they were
Oh,
like,
so there was
we're
2
expecting,
shows.
yeah, that this was the, yeah. I don't know when the first one happened,
Oh, okay.
um, but the this was the second show, and they were expecting so many people to come. To dude, we can't put this inside, so
Right.
they put it outside. They still ran all the power into the Sonic itself. They like blocked off the driveway and stuff with the merch tables.
Mhm.
Um, and like when we got there at like probably 10 o'clock at night, like 9:45, and it was still open until like 11. And it was funny because there was like all these like punks just like tailgating in the parking lot, and like 40 of us like setting up the show, like putting like the PA and all the drums and stuff together, and people are still driving through the drive-through, just like, what the fuck are all you people doing? You know?
Right.
Um, but yeah, no, I remember like we were in Philadelphia for the past week, and we just kind of happened to be in town when it was happening, and so they were like, dude, like you guys should play it. We're like, duh, like that sounds fucking awesome.
Right.
So because it's not our show at all, and because some like radius clause stuff, we didn't announce that we were playing at all. It was like purely like no one, even like people like were posting the flyer the day of, and they were putting like flower emojis and stuff. And I guess people were like, dude, like is Scowl playing? And they're like, I don't know, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Uh
Yeah.
like
And you yeah,
maybe.
yes. Like I remember when I was down in Los Angeles, and there was something similar for rotting out, and they had to
Mhm.
kind of do like play under street prowl
Yeah, I
to
remember
be
that
able to
flyer.
do their
Yeah.
shit. So yeah, like sometimes when you're at a band of rotting out or scowl level, like there's other things, but still being able to make it, like, I don't know, maybe you should come down and find out.
Yeah, yeah, there's literally one way to find out, you know?
Right, right, exactly.
um But yeah, no, we were lucky that everyone was so down to have us play, and it was awesome. It was like so much fun. Like and also that was just like a homie show.
Hmm.
I obviously we've known Chemical Fix for a while. Malachi, the member, is also playing Fixation,
Right.
and Malachi's been booking Fixation for like 5 or 6 years now.
Yeah.
So we've just kind of stayed in contact. We met Gel, I want to say last year. I've been aware of them for like since like 2018 or so, 2019, whenever they first came out. Um, but yeah, no, like those are our homies, and like it was cool to like get to play with them because I think we've only played with them once in the past. We played Convulse Records Fest in Colorado last year,
Hmm.
and we played together on that. But and then the guys in Exhibition, some of them used to play in this band called Clear Focus, and Malachi and I, uh, our old bands, got to play with them back in 2017 and 2018 when they came to the West Coast.
Hmm.
So we've known those guys for like a long time, and those are just like old homies that like I haven't seen them in like 4 years. So
Yeah.
it was all just like a homie show. And also shout out to Fanta. I didn't get to really meet anyone in the band, but they were like super nice people, and they fucking killed it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it was just like yeah, you're a friend. Like why wouldn't you come and play? Like this, it's gonna be like this is already crazy, and it's just gonna make it crazier. So
Yeah.
yeah, it just kind of worked out. We happened to be in town. It was like cool. Well, let's go play a show. Fuck it.
The You saying that, even I think by the time that music probably started, like the restaurant was closed. But like
Yeah.
even just mentioning I I was talking about this at Hold Your Ground with some people. My One of my favorite live sets of all time is Expire playing Burgerville in Portland, Oregon, and like
Yeah.
people are inside and jumping on each other and just going crazy, and then in the background you can see the employees of this local burger chain or whatever it is, just like standing in disbelief, like what have we gotten ourselves into. And in the background the drive-through is still open, So I'm
Yeah,
sure,
they're
like, I
still
can't even
serving burgers.
imagine rolling up to get your milkshake and you're seeing people just punching the shit out of each other and like
Yeah,
jumping on top. And you're like, oh, what is going on in there? So the fact that, you're seeing, I feel like it's never, I would be shocked if it became a common thing for,
yeah.
quote unquote bands to play in like well established fast food chains. But
Yeah,
anytime that it does happen, it's like so cool and so
it's
sick.
hilarious. It's
Mhm.
it's the coolest thing ever, and it's just like it's fucking funny because it's like it's almost kind of like it's obviously hardcore is a very anti-establishment like community. So like going showing up to these places of large establishment and be like, yeah, we'll throw a show here. Is
Right.
like the juxtaposition is just fucking hilarious in my opinion. And um I mean like there's up in Chico, which is a few hours north of here. For a while there were some kids there. They're throwing shows at this California sandwich chain called Ike's,
Okay.
and Ike's is hella good. And I honestly have no idea how that even like how they got that to work. I don't know if like one of them worked there.
Mhm.
I think I heard a rumor at one point that it was sanctioned by Ike himself, which is if that's the case, that's pretty fucking cool. But yeah, no, it's just like it's the fact it's definitely not going to become a common thing, and like I definitely like saw that in like the comments and like some of that like the news outlets like posting about it, like oh like what's next? It's like I don't know, like it'll be funny when it happens, but it's not like every week is gonna be a different fast food establishment,
Yeah. Yeah. Like
But I mean, like,
it's
yo, if a Waffle House wants to have us, I'm down to play. I'll play at a Waffle House, a cookout. I'll play wherever. I don't give a fuck.
it's like playing at Waffle House. It's like we've already seen enough online videos at Waffle House of people like beating the shit out of each other. At least there could be like live music and like that kind
Yeah,
of
it's
shit.
like I was talking with someone like, dude, like if the show happened to Waffle House, like that's not even the least of the employees' concern. Like that
Exactly.
they wouldn't they would not care. That's a Tuesday for them, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, it's and I think it goes a little further when it's like a place like Sonic or like,
Mhm.
the What's Up Denny's because it's just so internationally known. But there's definitely like
Yeah.
smaller places like you mentioned Ike's. I don't
Mhm.
know if when Scowl was down. Well, you wouldn't have gone because they closed during the pandemic, but they actually are
Mhm.
opening up a new location. But there was this place on 17th Ave in Calgary called Tubby Dog, and they would have punk shows. They would have all this
Yep.
dope shit, and like had like the craziest hot dogs that you could even imagine, like macaroni and like Fruit Loops and just crazy shit. And just going to shows
Sick.
there was like so wild because like as someone who films shows, I'm like just standing holding the camera with one arm and just like pushing punk kids back at the same time. But it is like the for any business owner of any like whether it's a an arcade or like a chain of some kind, like the willingness to be able to do that creates like almost a never ending storytelling aspect where people
Oh
like
yeah.
I know 10 years we'll talk about Tubby Dog shows. I'm sure 10 years we'll talk about shows at Ike's or like, you know, and I think, as far as an archivist concerned, I was like, God, I really hope someone is there filming that show. And then when I saw that Sunny had posted it, I'm like,
Yep.
thank God I need
Thank
the
God.
gel at Sonic Drive in set on Hate 56. But that just creates like again like a quote unquote viral moment that just pushes to like people that might not know about this and then they can start
Yeah.
to go down the rabbit hole. And like, it's easy to talk shit and it's easy to like, oh, what's next? Like, is Burger King gonna have death metal nights or something? Like, obviously not. But I think it's like
Yeah.
base hits to be able to like keep things interesting in this scene that where there's so many moving parts. So
Yeah.
yeah, so shout out to Gel for the crazy crazy idea to be able to do that.
Big big shout out to Gel. I love those guys. Fantastic band too. Yeah, no, it's just fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hoping yeah, I don't even know cuz like I honestly think Waffle House would maybe be like the place to be like, yeah, like that makes sense off
It
of
just
like
makes sense. it just makes sense. It
Right.
adds up. It's like so. I feel like people see the Sonic on a fire, they're like, "Whoa, you haven't shot Sonic?"
Mm.
But if you put Waffle House on a fire, it's like, "Oh shit!" Like, yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah. I'm
Where
curious.
else?
Yeah. I'm very curious if there was anybody on rollerblades for the Sonic show, because that's the thing that's
I
always
I saw people like, oh, like missed opportunity. I don't think anyone showed up with rollerblades. I I wish they did, because that would have been even funnier. But
right.
also, like, the people were going wild there. I feel like it would have kind of just been a recipe for disaster.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I feel like the last we were talking about this at Hold Your Ground, like the last and maybe only rollerblade hardcore thing in existence is when the singer of Face Wreck was just going around the circle pit during LDB, and
That's so sick.
yeah, like that video, like we were rewatching it, like this is so fucking funny. Um, okay, so I think one of the last things that we can talk about, Cole, is just like
Mhm.
the thing that I really like about Scowl is that y'all will jump on a show to playing to like, I'm not sure how many people were at that, but like the the contrast between doing a show like that and then like only a few months ago, you guys were on tour with Limp Bizkit doing like crazy ass like stadium level shit. Like, is there a very clear intent with that band as far as like we want to do both extremes of that? Like we talked a lot about how like crucial DIY was in your upbringing, and that's
Mhm.
almost like a weird thing where you're meeting people and playing with people now where it's like that's not their story and that's not their understanding or outlook on it. But like
Yeah,
how important is like that quote unquote DIY ethic, even if you're playing at those like huge levels with Limp Bizkit, important to you specifically in Scowl as a whole?
dude, massively. Like it really, again, it makes us who we are, because it's like, as much as we're doing right now, and like I sorry, I'm like I can't speak English. I like, especially even like doing stuff at like such a big level, like playing a Limp Biscuit show. Like we're playing like local hockey arenas and shit. Like it was wild. But like when we showed up, like we all kind of already had a general understanding of like what was needed of us, and like what to like how to operate in this environment, and also like just how to treat people and like how to carry ourselves. And it like showed, because like everyone on the Limp Biscuit team, who also every single person on their team was like the nicest person in the world, and was just like so stoked to like have like a hardcore band on there, and
Mhm.
we're just like really nice people, and like just like open, very open to us. um they were like, every single one of them like at some point made some comment like, you guys, it feels like you have been doing this for a while. Like you kind of like, you already kind of know, like you're very respectful, and you're very like, you stay in your lane, but also like you're a very like, you're fun people to be around, and like we don't have any like, we never hear of any problems with you guys. Like I don't
Mhm.
have ever have like, oh, like they're going in places in the venue where they shouldn't be going, or like they're like talking like being disrespectful to whatever. Like it's just like, yeah, it's like we're we're just people at the end of the day. Like I'm not any more important than anyone who walks into the door to come see the show. It's like
Mhm.
I'm just here to do what I want to do, and it's cool that people want to come see that, and it's
Mhm.
cool that you want me here to do that. But at the end of the day, like I'm just a guy, and yeah, it's like we just being a DIY band like means we wouldn't be who we are, and we wouldn't be doing the things we're doing without that.
Mhm.
And like whether it is, playing a Denny, a Sonic, or like playing just like a local show, or being on tour and playing like 1,000 cat venue or 100 cat venue. It's like we're still just who we are, and like the primary ethos of Scowl, like the mission statement, just have fun and do whatever we want. That's literally it. Like there's no like, oh, like, we're like a serious like professional band. It's like, no, we're just like, we're playing the music that we like to play, and we're gonna play it wherever we want to play it, as long
Mhm.
as people want to see it, even if people don't want to see us. Like most of the people who like showed up to the Slim Biscuit shows have no idea who we are. Like, it's like we're literally just here to like be ourselves and have fun because and like do what we love to do because like everyone in Scowl is just a very dedicated and passionate musician and just like you know we just want to be here. Like I it's been a lifelong dream of mine to just play music and just like to be a musician and like you know let alone like being able to live off of that. Like we're not there yet, but like we're working towards that. We're trying to work towards that,
Right.
and that's kind of I feel like something that I'm really glad that I have with Scowl because it's like, you know, I've been in bands with people in the past where it's like, yeah, this is just for fun. Like I just like making this music, but I'm not trying to, like, I'm still going to school. I have like a big boy job. Like I'm not trying to, this is just I enjoy making music,
Mhm.
and that's fun. I love that too because I have bands like that. But and I've been in many bands like that. But Scowl is like everyone's like, no, like this is it. Like this is my life, and if I don't have this, I don't really have anything.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I put that before literally anything in my life. Like, and I know everyone in Scowl does and feels the exact same. Like, we're all kind of on call for like doing anything man related at all times. And like, I don't know. It's yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of rambling at this
No,
point,
no,
but
no. Like I think it is like sometimes recognizing when like a band is actually working towards that, and like you said, like I've said this so many times, like hardcore is a marathon, not a sprint. And
yeah,
is every band supposed to get to the level that you guys are at? Absolutely not. Like I think it's necessary for there to be good bands that only play regionally, and you're
yeah,
that band that like just really kills the local shows. And like I think getting into this, I think we all have this lofty idea that we want to tour 365 days of the year and we never want to be at home, and because we grow up and we see these bands doing that. And I think it's not I'm not saying don't strive for that if that's something that you want to do, but like my
it's
own
not for
like
everyone.
it's not for everyone, and sometimes you actually don't know if it's for you until you actually do it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And I think it's, like I think my musical aspirations have like not flipped and flopped, but have changed as like different things in my life have changed. And
Hmm.
if I'm being super honest, I think my viewpoint as far as like, oh, I've missed the mark of being a quote unquote like musician that tours and does those things like that. I'm turning 30 next year. Like I felt like that kind of missed it. And then as soon as Endgame started and we actually were getting opportunities that were bringing us outside of Alberta and outside of Canada, it's like, oh damn, okay, so like how can I adjust things to still give that attention? And maybe I'm not as on call as maybe the Scowl team is, but at the very
Hmm.
least making space for those things, because
Yeah.
you have to strike when the iron is hot. And I think it's
Yes.
yeah, like you're looking at it as like, Scowl isn't quote unquote paying all my bills, but it's alleviating some things if I'm breaking cymbals or, other shit that's if you can look at some of those small steps towards the ultimate goal of being able to play music as your full-time thing, um,
Hmm.
that's great. It's also great if you can just be in a band that pays for itself, and maybe you have a little band bank account that can get you to do a fest once a year. That's also sick
Yeah.
too. But yeah, it's I feel like, to connect it back to what we were talking about, the true way of actually getting there is by doing it yourself, because no one
Hmm.
else is going to be handing you that like cool touring opportunity or that cool fester opportunity. I think Scowl and lots of bands have gotten cool opportunities because they've seen the diligence and the hard work that's been put into it, going up to it, and so people gravitate towards that. And um I think the other thing I wanted to say is like it's very easy to try to rush and try to like act a certain way to get these things, but if you
Hmm.
just stay authentic to who you are, whether you're playing at a Sonic with a bunch of homies or playing with Fred Durst on a huge stage, if you stay true, people will like feel that and recognize that, and that will like carry. Because I think as
Yeah,
soon as you get those bigger opportunities and you're flipping how you view music or how you carry yourself, you will fall as quick as you rose, if that makes sense.
yeah. You kind of took all the words right out of my mouth. I really couldn't have said any of
Sorry,
that
Cole.
better myself. No, you're fine. You're fine. I 100% agree with everything you're saying. Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, and like, everyone in the DIY scene, everyone in the music scene, everyone in the hardcore scene has their own place, and there's enough room for literally everybody to
Mhm.
do whatever they want. And it's like everything's very symbiotic too. Like one thing couldn't exist without the other.
Right.
And um I mean, it's like, like you said, it's like if you just want to be like a, a band that just plays out, you want to be the regional band, that's fucking sick because those bands need to exist. Like it was like, I mean, like for example, when we're on tour, Malachi still books a lot of the shows in the Bay. Like he's constantly working and constantly putting stuff together and having to have people go run the shows for him because
Mhm.
obviously he's on the road. And there's been a handful of times where he's like, fuck, like I don't know who to put on because like I'm kind of running out of locals. Like I've already put everyone on all these shows like for this month. Like I don't want to have any like repeats so soon, but it's like those bands need to exist,
Right.
and like local scenes need to exist, and it's like I don't know, yeah, but like also at the same time, like touring bands need to exist because like obviously you can have a show with all locals on it. That's always fun. Like I love that. But like also having a reason to put on a show is like without an excuse to be like, oh, I just want to do this for fun. It's like, no, we have to, it's like we have to put this together, you
Right.
know?
And
And
we
like
as a
it's like,
community need to show up to not
yeah,
only support this band, but support the person who's like putting on the show and making sure they're not paying out of pocket. Like there's so many layers to
exactly.
it. Yeah.
There's so many layers and also supporting yourselves. Like you're doing a disservice to yourself if you're not putting it in because it's like maybe you like kind of fall off for a while and then you come back and nothing's there. It's like, well, yeah, you weren't like everyone just kind of stopped showing up, And it's
Mhm.
like I've seen I mean my own scene has had its ebbs and flows. Like when I first started my first bands, like San Jose like was kind of on a lull for a little bit. Um and there were still shows happening. There's still bands around. I mean, I was in one and we're trying to do shit. But again, it has its ups and downs just like every single scene does.
Right.
Um and but it's obviously things change and people have to deal with stuff, but it's like I don't know. It's like I try my best to go to as many shows while I'm home too. It's a little harder for me because I'm where I'm living right now. I don't live in San Jose at the moment. I live like an hour and a half outside of San Jose,
Mm.
and so it's like sometimes it's like fuck. Do I want to make a 3 hour round trip just to go to the show? Um, but I still try my best to support as much as I can. Even if I'm not at a show, I try to like put all the homies on. My social media exists purely to promote things. Really, at this point, like whether it be my own band or my homie stuff,
Mhm.
it's like I'm always trying to put the word of like shit out there,
Mhm.
and it's like I don't know, just like you gotta if you want something to stay alive, you gotta it's like a dog, you gotta feed it.
Right. But you also have to
You
fight
want it
for
to
it.
be alive, you also gotta fight for it too.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, what if fucking coyote comes into your yard? It's like you gotta help your dog out.
Yeah.
That's a horrible analogy, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, like it's funny because like flat spot family. When Jem from
Mhm.
Speed came on, like we always talk. Like they're in a totally different like camp as far as like Australia and like being the front runners for that scene right now. As far as
Yeah.
hardcore is concerned, but like yeah, like he always gets me fired up about doing shit in this because he's
Mhm.
like, yeah, hardcore is something you have to fight for because it's
Yeah.
very it's very easy, like you said, to like, I'm not gonna go to shows for a couple of years, and then you come back and you're like, oh damn, like things went away. But it's like it's not like that person only that person's fault,
No, yeah,
but
they
like
didn't kill the scene. Yeah.
but it is a collective, and, like, I've seen it where, like, someone stops booking shows, and then there's kinda like the, "Oh, shit," like, who is gonna take it up? And then someone does it, and there's a weird thing as far as, like, also, like, and I recognize this as someone, like, I've been filming shows for 6 years now,
Mhm.
under scoped as 5, and I'm like, "God, when is someone else gonna be, like, doing this so I could, take a break and doing that?"
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like recognizing I forget where I was going with that. I think it's recognizing that it's at times it is a thankless job, and
Yeah.
reminding that that doesn't need to be the norm. Because for me, I'm
No.
like always making sure to thank whoever's putting on whatever I'm playing or being involved in. Like I've told Sunny, like when Endgame plays Act Like You Know in November, I'm gonna be just like shouting him out and pointing at his camera multiple times because like as far as how much he works for the scene, like that's really important to me. Um, shouting out like all those smaller roles that like you don't really think about, and sometimes in the moment you might forget about and you're only shouting out your homies or your bands. But I think I would encourage people listening to just like intentionally shout out the people that need more shout outs.
Give credit where credit's due.
Absolutely.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And also something else to kind of add on to what you were saying is like you were saying, like you've been filming for 6 years now and you're like, fuck, like when is someone else gonna do this? If you want to pass on that mantle at some point, you gotta keep showing up and keep doing it. Cause it's like that's the only way like someone eventually is gonna come along and be like, oh, like I could do that too.
Hmm.
Cause but like they won't know it's there unless if you're there, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah.
Or like just like if there's a band, it's like new kids are coming and seeing new bands, like, oh, like I could do that too. And then they start their own band and then the cycle restarts.
Hmm.
And but yeah, it's just to touch back on everything. It's like of like keeping your scene alive and supporting it and like actively like putting work into it and fighting for it. Like if you it's like it's there's just so many layers. And I mean like right now like the Bay Area scene is doing very well at the moment. And it was there's a few new bands from San Jose and it's a bunch of people who are, in their late teens to early 20s and they're all starting new bands or they're all just showing up and supporting. They're started doing their own zines. They're doing whatever that, but like they're contributing and they're
Hmm.
putting it in. And like I was at a show probably like a month ago or so, and there was a local band from San Jose called Outskirts that was playing, and honestly, like to be completely honest, like, I didn't really know like anyone in the band personally. But like them and their friends were made up most of the crowd at that show.
Hmm.
And it was just like a very heartwarming thing to see because it's like, damn, like this this should exist without us. Like it's the next generation is here. And like we there's probably plenty of people in my generation and that are bitter and like kind of jaded and whatnot, and that's gonna come, it just happens. Um, but it's like we've put so much work in for so long that like it's the next iteration of the San Jose scene and the Bay Area scene is already here and it's already taking place. It's already forming, and it's just like it was a very heartwarming moment for me. 'Cause it's like I was watching them play and I was watching all their homies like sing every word and mosh their fucking hearts out. I was like, dude, like it reminds me when I started first going to my first shows
Totally.
and
Yeah.
I started my first band and it's like it makes me happy. And like all those kids are like the nicest kids in the world. Like they're all super supportive and they're all just stoked on hardcore. Like
Hmm.
there's like plenty of them that like they would like come to like shows and get their fucking asses whooped in the pit and they're like, that was the sickest shit ever. I'll see
I
y'all
know.
next week, you know? And it's like it's the coolest thing ever. And it's just like you know, but like, that can't exist unless if people put the work in.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm like a fucking key player for the scene. I haven't like I've booked a handful of shows. I've been in my fair share of bands. But like I'm not single handedly keeping shit alive. But like I've put in work and like as of many people that I know, and it's like if we didn't do that, then we wouldn't have what we have now. I wouldn't be here talking to you, you know?
Right. Yeah, I think maybe one of the last things I can add on this topic is like if with whatever you do in hardcore, whether it's playing in a band, you book shows, you film
Mhm.
shows, you do a zine, you do any, because at the end of the day, it's all creative. Like putting on a
Yeah,
show, like playing in a band, there's all these different creative outlets and ways that you can express yourself that way. If you are getting hit up by people like, hey, what you do has inspired me to start this, start my own band, start my own YouTube channel where I film, or like start a podcast, or like take photos. I feel like that to me is one of the most humbling experiences to be able to be told
absolutely.
that, because like for me, like I know Scoped Expression would not exist without Hey 56, without like people like Steven from 197 Media. Like
Hmm.
those people like helped, and, there's so many people that have inspired me musically and things like that, but like once you're doing it for long enough, and then I'm going to shout out, I'm blanking on his first name, but his account is Naughty Pelican Media, and
Okay.
I've been able to, I watched a couple interviews that he's done with some of the members of Tsunami, Cole from Gulch, and Print has also been on it, and he has like messaged me being like, I've been following school for years, like you've inspired me, and I feel like that should be like that has been such a humbling experience, and that uses as a reminder like, yeah, the next generation is already here and they're starting to actually like take the mantle. And some people are built to be doing whatever their shit is, whether it's bands or fests or whatever, but
Hmm.
all things at some point come to an end, and at the very least being able to sit back and knowing that your time with whatever you're doing actually set up people to be taking that and taking it way further is it's just the name of the game.
Exactly. It's like, it's kind of the reason I'm here. It's, to keep this shit alive, you know?
Yeah. So Cole, this has been like such a fantastic conversation with you. I
Yes.
it's funny because sometimes I'll go into an interview and I have all these notes, and like I have a couple things here that I was like, I don't even need to really like rely on that, because it felt like this conversation was just flowing so naturally,
Yeah.
and I feel like that helps with you being an absolute real one and a G, but also like us having a little bit of buy-in from each other as well. So the very last question I'm going to ask you before we wrap up the show, and that I
Cool.
ask any guest that come here on the podcast, is a favorite mosh related moment that you would like to share. And that could be funny, that could be gruesome, that could be wholesome, that could be something that happened to you, something that you just saw at a show. Whatever's the first to your dome is how we start to wrap up.
I was so I can go based off of literally the first thing that came to my head because you started saying that immediately my mind started racing. I was like, fuck, like I'm not much of a mosher. Like I got a two step, I can side to side sometimes. That's really all I got. Like I'm not a mosher. I've never like swung on someone. Like it's respect. It's just it's not in my blood.
Right.
So I was like, fuck, like I've never done anything. Like what can I think of? And then I was like, well, maybe other people. But there's one thing that comes to mind, and I still feel bad about it to this day. Um, but there's this band I used to play in a band called Josh Struck, and the guitar player of that band is this guy named Jake. Jake actually played in my first band Backburner with me as well.
Okay.
Um, and he still plays with Josh Struck, and he actually sings in the band called Vial of Tears. They just dropped a demo like a week ago, and
Okay.
everyone in that band's a very good friend of mine. Give a shout out to Vial of Tears. Go
I'm
listen
gonna
to
go
that
listen
demo.
to that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're great. I love them. But he's a singer, and I've played in multiple bands with him, and he's a shorter guy. I'm not like a big guy. I'm like 5'10", 5'11". I sit usually about 200 pounds. I'm like, I'm an average guy for my height and age.
Sure.
But he's a smaller guy. He is, I think, somewhere between 90 and 110, and I think 5'3", 5'4", if I had to
Oh,
guess.
okay.
He's a small guy.
Sure,
He
yeah.
just, he's very he surfs a lot and he works. He like does like hard labor, so he's just very slim all the time.
Mhm.
And he's very for that reason he's very easy to pick up. And um and I've seen many times where he's been like moshing and like he'll like run into someone and I don't know what happened, but there was like a week span where like I saw it 3 times where he would do that, and the person literally would like grab him by his arm and leg and just like throw him across the room. But specifically, what I wanted to say is, sometimes when I'd be playing with him, when I was doing vocals in the band, I would just be like, I would be like a mosh partner. Like, I have nothing to do, so I'm just gonna walk over and I would just like pick him up by his waist and just like lift him up like while he's playing guitar, and like that would kind of people would be like, "Oh, what the fuck, that's sick," and then it would kind of get people more stoked.
Right.
But there was specifically one time I can't remember exactly who was playing. I think it was a show that we played with Distort, The Real Cost, and Dress Code. If it might have been that show, I can't remember exactly. I feel like it was. It was something along those lines. It was like that kind of vein of bands, and I knew a mosh part was about to come up, so I'm like, oh, like I'm gonna like we weren't even playing, I was just watching. I was like, I'm gonna walk up and I'm just gonna like pick him up and I'm just gonna spin him around. That's all I'm gonna do. And instinctively I did that and he immediately just started kicking his legs. And we're just it was silly, we were just being funny. And like within 5 seconds of me like spinning him around, there was someone moshing and he just got them like right in the back of the head and they just immediately went to the floor. And I was like, "Oh shit!" And I just put him down and walked away. I'm just like,
Sorry.
I'm never. I literally never did that again. I felt so bad. Obviously, it's the nature of the beast, but like, no one's expecting someone with their legs up here to be knocking them in the back of the head. So I was like,
Right.
yeah, maybe that's a little bit much. That's one
Yeah, maybe
one
that's a one and done.
yeah, yeah. But I had no idea who it was. I literally like I blanked and was like I don't know who that was. I didn't see their face. I'm just gonna walk away and pretend like I wasn't
Right.
here. But yeah, that was that's literally that's the first thing that came to my mind when you said that.
Yeah. Man, it is always it's funny seeing I feel like there's versions where, someone is picking someone up and they're kicking their feet and then kind of walking into people. It's like, oh, okay. I will shout out because probably by the time this podcast drops, this set might already be out. But
Mhm.
Tsunami playing Hold Your Ground, there was a moment where someone had like wrapped their arms around their homie, and instead of kicking, they were just legs fully spread out. And seeing this person run from one side of the pit to the other, and their dick and balls go directly into someone's face at full speed was one of the funniest things I saw all that weekend.
That's fucking hilarious.
Yes, I have been, sifting through the footage trying to find it, but I definitely remember filming that on my camera, and I feel bad for that person that had to get that full frontal. But it's just
It's the
nature of
nature
the
of the beast. It's
beast.
how it goes. It's the way she goes, boys.
Man, Cole, this has been honestly so fun. This is the type of
Pleasure.
conversations that I hope to have on season 3. They're just like nothing but laughs and good conversations and positive thinking. So, obviously, your socials and all your band links will be in the YouTube description and the show notes. But if there's anything you want to shout out, anything you want to plug, or anything you want to send the people off with before we wrap up, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Oh boy. I'm trying to think. I already plugged a lot of homies. If there's any homie, I know you've heard this a million times to the show, but if there's anyone I forgot, I love you. Big shout out. I'll give a shout out to Gel, to Chemical Fix, Exhibition and Phantom, because that show was just sick, and I love all those bands and all those people. Um, I'll give a shout out to Instill and Buggin from Chicago. Um, I, my best friend Hendrik plays in both of those bands, so give a shout out to them. Um, I don't know if I really have anything to plug. Scowl's about to go on tour for like another 2 months, so we're probably playing near you people watching this. So come out to a show. It's gonna be
Hmm.
fun. I'm looking forward to it. Um, man, Thanks for having me. I don't know. Thanks you to the people for listening to this, and thank you for having me. I'm just happy to be here. This is a lot of fun. It's been an honor.
Absolutely, dude. And yeah, definitely go check out the Scowl tour if it's coming to a city near you. The fact that y'all are touring with Ankle Biter and Jive Bomb is very sick.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
And
dude.
thanks again for
Every
coming
band on
on.
that lineup is, yeah, dude. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Spencer.